How Caesar conquered the Roman Republic. In the year 49 BC, Julius Caesar was the governor of several provinces, which included Illyricum and Gaul. After negotiations with the Senate broke down, Julius Caesar, whose term in office had ended or come to a close, was supposed to step down. But Caesar instead decided to take his army and cross the Rubicon and march on Rome. Pompey and the Senate, or at least the Optimate senators, fled Rome and went to Greece to raise an army and to fight Caesar. And so Caesar marched into Italy and Rome and took over. Now, when this happened, the city of Marseille in southern France revolted against Caesar and joined and supported the Roman Republic, or Pompey. At this point, Caesar could have followed Pompey and attacked him in Greece. But this meant that with Marseille, his flank and he could be attacked from the back. And also, the forces there could even attack and go into Gaul. So what Caesar did is he marched north instead and laid siege to Marseille and set about building siege equipment. There was also several naval engagements in which the Roman Republic tried to reinforce and resupply Marseille, but those failed. Pompey was also governor of Spain and had an army there, and there was a fear, or at least a possibility, that Pompey, unchecked, could attack Gaul from Spain. And so Caesar went back to Gaul and took his army and invaded Spain, which was controlled by Pompey. Pompey was the governor of Spain, and Caesar defeated Pompey's army that was there at the Battle of Ilerida, and Caesar took over Spain, which was also a very important province because there was many silver and gold mines and other resources that was there. Caesar then went back to Marseille, which was still under siege, and took the city. And so now Caesar's flank was secure, and so Caesar went to Greece, where Pompey was building up his army. And Pompey and Caesar fought, and Pompey defeated Caesar at the Battle of Dyrrhachium. Now, at the Battle of Dyrrhachium, Pompey had won the battle, but had not completely defeated Caesar, Caesar was able to withdraw and escape with much of his army and was able to leave and reorganize and had some time to regroup. A small amount of time passed. Pompey and Caesar fought again, and Caesar defeated Pompey at the Battle of Pharsalus and destroyed Pompey's army, which allowed Caesar to take over Greece. Now, after the Battle of Pharsalus, the Roman Republic had lost a huge amount of its forces and military strength. Pompey himself survived the battle and went to Egypt to try to raise another army or a new force. But when he got there, he was murdered or assassinated. Some of the other senators, such as Cato and some of the other senators and remains of some of the Roman Republic's forces, left Greece after the Battle of Pharsalus and went to Africa to try to regroup and raise a new army. Caesar followed Pompey to Egypt. And when Caesar got to Egypt, he found that there was a civil war going on in Egypt, and Julius Caesar sided with Cleopatra against her brother, and Caesar put Cleopatra on the throne of Egypt. Now, during the Roman Republic, many areas of influence and many kingdoms were indirectly controlled by the Romans. So the Romans, when they would take over an area or move into a place, they would make deals with the local king, or they would set up local client states. And there were many of these in various places around the Mediterranean. For example, there was the kingdom of Mauritania, the kingdom of Numidia, the king of Egypt, the kingdom in Judea, and many others around in various places around the Mediterranean, especially on the borders of the Roman Republic. The Bosporan kingdom, king of Bosporus, and these kings or queens would do business with the Romans. They would have an alliance, or they would be a client state. They would do trade, engage in commerce, and they would, the kings would send soldiers or mercenaries to help the Romans in various conflicts. In the civil war between Caesar and Pompey and the other forces of the Roman Republic, many mercenaries fought in Pompey's army in Greece and elsewhere. And so Egypt, when Caesar got to Egypt, Egypt was a very important place in the Mediterranean, a very important kingdom, because much of the wheat and grain that the Romans used came from Egypt, Africa, and elsewhere. And so Caesar ended the war there to make sure that there was no major interruption of the grain supply that was sent to Rome. The cura annona, which was basically the food stamps that they had 2,000 years ago as part of the bread and circuses that the Romans had and used. And so Caesar spent some time in Egypt and defeated Cleopatra's brother at the Battle of the Nile and made Egypt once again a secure place for the Romans to do business, and especially so that their food supply going back to Italy and elsewhere would not have any major interruption. However, while all this was going on, the Bosporan Kingdom, which was in an area which today is in Ukraine and Russia, the king of the Bosporan Kingdom, Pharnaces II of Pontus, who in theory was supposed to be a client king or client state of the Romans, decided that he was going to try to retake some of the land that the previous Bosporan king had lost. And so what he did is he raised an army and invaded the northeastern part of Roman territory and took it back. And he didn't really have too many problems doing this, because during the Civil War, many of the soldiers that normally would have been stationed on the borders were removed to go help and fight with Pompey in Greece and elsewhere. And so the borders of the Roman state were not very well defended. And so the Bosporans, basically, the Bosporan kingdom, decided that they were going to try to rebuild their previous kingdom or empire that they had before, and started taking over. Now Caesar, who was in Egypt, took his army and went north. And at the Battle of Zela, defeated the Bosporan kingdom, or Pharnaces II. And after that battle, Julius Caesar made things right and restored things, and then went back to Rome, went back to Italy. Now, while all this was going on, and Julius Caesar was away in the east, in the west, or in Africa, the Roman Republic forces that were there rebuilt and reorganized their army and their forces that they had. They increased the number of soldiers, and they launched an attack from Africa to Spain and retook the province for the Republic. When Caesar got back to Rome and to Italy, he brought his army with him, and Caesar went down to Africa, and at the Battle of Thapsus defeated the Roman Republic's forces and army that was there. And Caesar took over Africa. And the last battle that Caesar took part in, or Caesar's last battle, was in Spain. And Caesar left Africa with his army and went to Spain. And at the Battle of Munda, Caesar defeated the last army or force that the Roman Republic had, and Caesar took back Spain. And so, after the Battle of Munda, Caesar had defeated or conquered the Roman Republic. Caesar went back to Rome and made himself dictator or dictator for life. Now, Julius Caesar was not the first Roman emperor. Caesar's heir Octavian was the first emperor. But what Julius Caesar did, is he basically seized power and made the Roman Senate and the consuls basically obsolete. Caesar, as dictator, could not be vetoed. He didn't leave office. He didn't have a term limit. And so Caesar just remained in office indefinitely. And there was nothing the Roman Senate could do. He couldn't be removed. And he was supposed to stay like that indefinitely. And so Julius Caesar was assassinated or murdered in 44 BC. And after Caesar, several attempts were made to restore or bring back the Roman Republic by Brutus and Cassius and also Pompey's son, but those failed. And so the Roman Empire lasted for about 500 years. Julius Caesar was murdered in 44 BC, and the Roman Empire ended in 476, at least the one in the west, and the East Roman Empire lasted until 1453, or for about 1,400 years. And so, even though Julius Caesar, after the Battle of Munda, a really short period of time, I don't even think it was about a year, just a couple months when he got back to Rome before being assassinated. But every Roman leader after Caesar, every Roman ruler, was a dictator. And the Roman dictatorship lasted, like I previously mentioned, for about 500 years in the West, and for another 1,400 years in the East. And so that is how Caesar conquered the Roman Republic.